Truth in Its Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and we're exploring the depths of the artistic mind. If you have a love for the arts, culture, and carving your own path in the creative world, you've tuned into the right show. Today, we are journeying into the landscape of modern America through the lens of an award-winning photographer who captures the human experience in its rawest form. So get ready for an intense, intellectual, and profoundly authentic conversation with the visionary behind the upcoming book, Black Astronaut. Please welcome Kamal X. Welcome to the podcast.
Man, thank you, man. That even sounds good, man. Like, like the process of creating something from nothing and then actually, being able to share this experience and then meeting you and being on this awesome podcast, all beautiful stuff, man. Thank you for having me. Really excited. I really enjoy the way you converse and the way you dig into topics and your vibe, man. It's really, really good stuff, man. Really good stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you. It's practice, I guess, even though we're not supposed to do practice. Allen Iverson, I don't know. But it's one of those things, being able to, connect with people from, I don't like when people say human interest and things of that nature feels buzzwordy. I just try to connect with people and have that genuine curiosity as to, like, what do you do? How do you do it? What's the thing that goes into it? So before we sort of get to that part of the conversation, I want to get to the roots or the rut, if you're from the South, of it. So, again, thank you for making the time to come on. And, for folks that are undipped, unfamiliar, could you introduce yourself, like, in your own words? Because, I have visionary. You might use a different term.
Visionary's lit. I'm with visionary. Actually, I have like this pennant from Egypt. I went to Egypt a while ago, and it actually has vision on it. And this is before I even was a photographer. So I keep it with me to just vision is important. But yeah, I'll introduce myself. My name's Kamal X. I'm a photographer. I would say I'm just a creative person in general, but I'm very focused on photography right now. I have some business things going on too, but that's more like to fulfill my dreams, not my dream, So my dream is photography. My dream is film. My dream is connecting with people and showing people the way I see the world. And that's everything I'm about. And that's the skinny, that's the skinny.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We like to keep it skinny. Sometimes we get fatter, we get deeper into it, into the adipose tissue. But, so in it, you mentioned photography, you mentioned a creative, and, we all have our roots. Like, for me, I've mentioned it on here before, one of the earliest moments I remember podcasting was recording audio was in high school. I had the little handy recorder, just walking to people. I'm late 30s. So I was walking to people, talking in the third person, like The Rock, if you're a wrestling person. And I'm like, yeah, man. So the Rob says, and like, you are a weirdo, but I was doing that. And, that I think in some ways kind of helped prepare me, if I'm really thinking back to it, of being able to try to connect with people, in my own way. So were there some sort of early inspirations or early like points in your life that you feel like kind of shaped you as a creative?
I feel that. Great question. And a little bit about the first part, and I agree with you saying, like, keeping it skinny, because sometimes you've experienced so many things that it's hard to give I'm this, that, but I'm definitely, you'll see in this conversation. So what inspired me? I would say in the beginning, I think movies and going to the movies with my dad was like a way out. That was like an escape. That was a way of a different world. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. My parents cared a lot about me, but there was reality to that experience. Like I knew I was happy, but at the same time, we wasn't going on trips to Europe. We wasn't flying, or, there was a lot of things where that gave me an eye into a new world. And I was always a daydreamer. I was the one in the back of the class looking out the window, teachers having to have meetings with my parents. Like, he's not interested. Like, I wasn't, so like, I was just always a person that was somewhere else, kind of in the clouds, but only because I wasn't intrigued. I had to find things that intrigued me. And off the bat, I think people was what intrigued me. I remember in school, I was the kid that would be friends with everyone, you know, no matter if it was the kid people picked on or the coolest kids in the room. And I was also a very good athlete. So I just was able to know everybody. Like in high school, I was like close friends with like the staff. Like I was hanging out with teachers. It was just like I was just really good at connecting with people. And to my surprise, I was even in the newspaper, which if you knew me back then, that doesn't even make sense. You know, so like I was working at the newspaper. I don't know what made me do it, but now looking at me as a photographer and a documentary photographer, it's kind of like it was like manifesting itself in different ways. And I think I've had a very expanded vision of humanity because I've met so many different kinds of people. I've experienced a lot of crazy stuff in my life, a lot of beautiful things in my life too. And because of that, it's just shown me like, yo, there's never, like, you never have it figured out. You never have it figured out. And the curiosity has been the only thing that's kind of that's gotten me through some of the toughest times I've ever been in, you know, always realizing there's more. This isn't it. There's a new opportunity. You can feel like crap one day. You can feel like the world is about to end. And literally within a second, something can come through and change your entire outlook on life. And I kind of learned that as I got old, well, in my 20s, I would say, I really started to understand that. And it's been, people have been something I've really invested in, and it's always invested back into me and made this life, you know, worth living, like beautiful to me. And so just being able to have a medium like photography, it just like further, you know, I genuinely love it. Like it does, like when I go to take photos, I'm literally in bliss because I understand how beautiful people are. I understand how, you know, the world, oftentimes we can get in blinders and not pay attention to see what's really happening. We have like these filters and what people tell us about things, and we're just going about our day, not letting new information in, not meeting new people, not trying new things. And before you know it, when's the last time something new's come in? For most people, it's, you know.
Well, I think you're right in sort of all of it, and specifically when it comes to sort of letting in new influences and being able to kind of explore, you know, like I've taken a bit of a respite from social media because it's not good for you at the end of the day. And we have these justifications as to, well, I needed to market it and so on. It's just like, no, people think this is how you communicate now. And one of the happy byproducts, I'm a very shy individual, right? So one of the byproducts of doing this is to fake it. You know, to fake it really well. Like, oh yeah, Rob is so gregarious and outgoing. No, I am. I am looking for my corner and my bourbon to be away from everyone. But I think in it gives me, doing this podcast with so many different types of people, different type of creative folks. It allows me, and I think this is kind of one of the things you were touching on, it allows me to be able to explore in some ways proxy, whether it is someone from a different community, a different art discipline, and just by the nature of talking to various people, a different story. You know, they have, you all have your own individual stories. So in it, you know, I'm going to learn something about you and kind of figuring out as we go along as to not be transactionary, you know, like you tell me this, I get something out of it. It's not that, it's about connection, and you touching on, you know, sort of having this connection early on with people. That's something that's really big. And, you know, I think in doing this podcast as long as I have, and being a podcaster as long as I have, I've been able to pick up on sort of some of those traits to be able to connect with people. So yeah, that's a really interesting detail there. So I want to hear about where you draw inspiration and how you got into photography, because I think, you know, how we get into it, you know, we all have different things, as I touched on, and I'll be a comic book artist. That's what I wanted to start at. And I'm a guy with a microphone now. So tell me about how you got into it and some of those influences, some of the people or some of the scenes that, you know, gave you that juice to say, I want to do photography like that, or I'm interested in this subject matter.
Well, that's beautiful. So I would say, again, the movies, it kind of happened like my evolution of figuring out who I am. The camera and media has always been a big piece of it. Like, I remember like there was a point like at 21 where my life was like I was as far out in the wilderness as possible. I remember I was at Morgan State at the time
Same.
and literally not even going. Oh, really? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you Baltimore, right? So I wanted to talk to you about that. Yeah, I was at Morgan State. So, and I was wilding out. Like I wasn't really there for school.
Okay.
I didn't understand why I was there. I just was like, I didn't understand college at that point. I had no vision of what I wanted for my life. So I was getting into all the stuff that you shouldn't be getting into in college. And I remember there was a point where my mom, like, she knocked on the door like 3 o'clock in the morning one day. And I had roommates at the time. And she was like, "You're coming with me." And I didn't even say nothing back. I was so like defeated and just, you know what? Yep. Pulled out of school, came back to New Jersey, got my life together, got into like, started reading, got a trainer, like just started understanding, finding like older people to talk to about this, other men, idols, researching like Muhammad Ali, getting deeper into Malcolm X, Gandhi, Buddha. I was going deep, man, because I was like, I can't go that far ever again. I got to start climbing back the other way. So as that was happening, I really started getting into film. So you got the blockbuster stuff that everyone knows about. But then when I found out about the Oscars and like all those movies and the independent films, I'm like, no one taught me about this and growing up in Newark. Like, this wasn't the movie category list. That just didn't happen. So I got really, once I found out all those classics that no one ever showed me, it was like every day was like a movie. And so as I'm growing and refinding myself and getting into real estate and getting successful in that, like getting my first condo at like 23 years old, and like my mind is growing, and also film is a part of it. And I always wonder, like, why do I like movies so much? It really didn't really make sense, because I was more in the business side of things in terms of being in real estate. And then an unfortunate thing happened, and we talked a little bit before the show, but around 2000, I know how old I was. I was 26, 27 years old. My best friend unfortunately transitioned from colon cancer. Now, this is, as I'm telling you a little bit of my story, this is like coming from getting pulled out of school in a dark space, getting it together, and having some of the most amazing experiences and being thankful for that. Because that was like I was living my dream at that point. And, my best friend, Drew, he was my right-hand man. Like, and through all the conversations we had, I think either one of us wouldn't have been able to become the men that we became if we didn't have each other's backs and ask questions and think outside the box. We're very creative people that were always like, why are we doing this? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I don't know if this is the route. We wanted to make our own path, basically. So when he transitioned, and it was like, none of us were ready for that. Because even when he had cancer or was going through chemo, our mindset is like, he's going to be okay. Like, you don't think at 26, something like that can happen. I never experienced it. I didn't know, like, I didn't even know what stage 3 meant at that time, So having that and being in the room when everything happened, it kind of took my world from like, again, down to the ground, but a different type of thing than what happened in college, and just losing your best friend and not understanding how to deal with grief. And I dropped everything, and I just booked a ticket for a tour to 40 days backpacking, which I never done before. No one in my family did that. I was a freedom person, but it was more like moving around in America, going to an island or something like that, not going some foreign place where you don't speak the language and you have a backpack. That was some brand new ish for me. But when he passed away, I wanted to do something that made him happy and proud of me, and something that I feel like we can share together. So I went to Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos, and that trip changed my life. It was extremely uncomfortable. It wasn't just this whole, oh my God, I'm seeing it. It was hard as heck to get through. But I knew I had a reason, and I was going towards something. And that trip became 5 years of traveling the world. And I ended up going to over 40 countries and made a book out of it. Now, here's the photography part. Because there's a crux. So there's one point I'm going from country to country. I got addicted to it, and I'm like finding myself. I'm connecting with people. I'm finding my forgiveness and love and peace, dealing with the grief. And I was in not Cambodia. I was in Ecuador, and I met a friend named Anna, in miles. We ended up sleeping on I met them this day we did whitewater rafting. I met them and we said, hey, you want to camp with us? We're going to camp on a volcano tonight. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy, right? I'm like, yeah, I don't. And I'm assuming you know what you're doing because I don't. So like I'm going with them. And then and we're hanging out and the volcano's like going off. This is my first time ever seeing something like this. And I remember she said, what do you shoot with? And I'm like, I didn't understand what that meant. She's like, what do you shoot with? I had a iPhone 4S. And she had a real DSLR with the tripod, the heavy tripod, the real, they are, both of them are photographers, professional. So she showed me her picture versus what my picture looked like. And I said, yo, I can never do this again. So I immediately bought a Nikon D3300, like in the next country. I think we're in Brazil. And I started shooting. And it just naturally, again, it happened naturally. It was never like, hey, I want to be a photographer. It was just always around me as I was growing. And as I was growing, I'm like, yo, I'm experiencing so many things that I'm so thankful for. What can I do to give? I want to show people this, but no one's going to get on a flight with me and do what I'm doing. And I understand that, especially at that age. This is like 27, 28, you know, and I'm 37 now. And yeah, it just became a love. And once people started connecting with my work, I'm like, I might be on to something. Like this artistry thing might be in all the movies, connecting with people, traveling the world and doing the same thing, meeting so many conversations and all that. That's why I picked up on your gift. Because I'm like, I know when I hear someone that has it, you know? So yeah, that's kind of that's not skinny, but that's kind of the vibe of like how photography kind of my influences, my reasons for what I'm doing, why I love it, and the power of it too. I think media is a very healing space depending on how you choose to use it, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow. That is amazing. And how long were you at Morgan? Because we may have been at the same time, bro.
Yeah. 2 years. 2 years at Morgan. I was there
at the same time.
Really? Wow. Yeah, I believe it.
I believe
it. Okay, cool. I was in business administration, but I wasn't coming to
major.
I wasn't coming in there like that.
I wasn't going there.
Oh man, that's so dope though, man. That's amazing. I'm happy that we're connected now. Then that's beautiful. I have a love for that. Experience was tough, but I have a different love for Baltimore and Maryland in general. Like, because I have a lot of love for the people that I met. They're great friends and a great place to visit for sure. A lot of heart in that city for sure.
Yeah, we do it, and so I want to step back a little bit because I got this is sort of a 2-part question. So do you remember? And I know you mentioned what it was, the iPhone, right? Do you remember sort of that first photo that you took with the like legit, like, okay, I'm actually using
something just happened.
I'm actually a photographer. Like,
yeah.
And the reason I asked that, like, there's sort of a thing when you have the investment component, and I waver on it, right? Where you see people. I'm sound real old when I say you see these new jacks. Yeah,
hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. I'm with it. I know what you're talking about.
You see people when they grab something, they may have the resources, but their heart's not in it. There's no feeling behind it. And someone who has a lot of feeling, but they may not have that good gear. But you're like, no, you just need the thing. And I think there's a variation between that versus the other side. So for you, when you're like working with like the legit gear and you're like, okay, I've made this investment, I'm identifying more with being a photographer. Do you remember that first photograph? And I have a second part to it, but I want to let you start there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. In the beginning, so luckily I started while I was traveling and I was already on a tight budget. So getting that Nikon D33 with a kit lens, that was already like, but they were like, you got to get a real DSLR. So I didn't want to get nothing cheap that didn't have all the functions on it. And, I feel like I was lucky because I started with minimal and builded my way up naturally. Like, it was like, I only started buying new gear and things of that nature once I realized I needed it versus just, oh, this is the playbook. Get this camera, this lens, get this bag, the backpack and all that and tripods. But I didn't actually take a photo yet. So I was kind of like, oh, I want to get a different angle. I want more light. Then researching. So I learned in a very organic way. So I am really lucky for that. And the moment that really did it, honestly, the first photo that really was like because I've done some decent stuff. Like I was all right, but I knew I didn't make something that was like some stranger was gonna go, whoa, who did that? You know, so like there was a moment when I was in Paris actually, because I fell in love with Paris. Paris is amazing. I didn't like it the first time I went when I was young. I went as an adult. I love Paris. And I was there and I didn't even notice, but they were having like this what was it? They had this yellow jacket like revolution, and basically had something to do with like getting paid or something like that. It was a revolution. They all had parking lot yellow jackets. And I got to the hotel and they're like, yeah. And they had like a report on the news of people burning stuff. And I'm like, oh, snap. I didn't know this was going down. So what am I going to do? So I remember I asked the lady at the hostel, I was like, yo, where are they going to have that? Because I actually was curious to take pictures of it. I'm assuming it's going to be safe. I go, and that night I felt alive for the first time because it was dangerous now.
Yeah.
It got real because at first it was calm, and then the police came with the riot gear. People were throwing flare guns and people were cursing me out because they didn't know who I was, and I had a camera, so I'm pressed, you know. Right. So I had to be very, you know, I was a different level of photography. This isn't going to see a picture of the Eiffel Tower and taking the picture. This is like you have to use your brain smarts where you like you gotta, it's so much street smarts. You got so I remember feeling so alive, and I remember they threw like tear gas. And I started coughing. I remember tear gas from Baltimore going to Trust and all that. So I know all about all that. So when I smelled it, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here. And I remember coughing on my way back to the hotel. And I just got really good photos. But that was like the feeling of that let me know, okay, you like this, something about that energy was like what is attractive to you. And this is before we did the book and all. So, but the next day, there was a pride march of all, like and I'm not, you know, all respect to everybody in their lifestyle, but I'm not a part of that community, but I support people to do whatever they want to do. So I'm just like, oh, there's a pride march. Okay. After that first thing, I'm like, I think I need to go where the energy's at. Yeah. So I go, and I think there's a moment where there's this girl and she almost looks like Fifth Element. Like she had like gold hair, blonde goldish hair. She had an orange two-top thing on, and the firefighters were out there like spraying water because it was really hot that day. And she literally is there trying to get like some, I guess, like cooling because it was so hot. And I'm just in the right place, right moment. And it looks like it's probably the best photo. A lot of people that know my catalog say that's the one they love the most. And it's a girl in Paris, and it's just, and when I took that photo, I remember looking at it like, it was like the world stopped. I was like, wait, did I do that? Like, how did I, like, I'm looking at the settings. I'm like, what did that? You know? So like, and I remember once I showed that to people, the reaction, the same thing I felt, like there was like a bright, like, it's like a pop feeling in your head when you see something that really translates like, wow, this is what I've been seeing in my head. I'm finally starting to create. Like, it doesn't feel like there's any more I can do. Yeah. This is exactly what my head has kind of been trying to do and get my mind to learn how to do with my settings and everything. So that was the first photo that really shifted the vibe. And that's a classic one. Hope people can see that. It's somewhere. If you go to my website, I am Kamal X is on there. You'll check that out. Yeah.
That's great. And the funny thing about it, you answered the second part of the question in that. So shout out to you. You're making my job easier, man. So I want to switch gears a little bit and kind of go into Black Astronaut. I want to talk about the bit of the.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, we're talking about it, right? So tell us about, you know, sort of give us the skinny, as it were, and what are the themes and sort of, you know, some of the background around it, and what compelled you to say, I need to focus my attention in this, because you know, I went through, I got the advanced copy, you know, C-list celebrity over here. Shout out to you.
Oh, my man. Congrats. Thank you for that, man. I really appreciate that, man. That's amazing. Thank you.
So in going through it, like what comes to mind? Like, give us sort of that rundown. Like, the images, obviously they are striking. They are great. I'm just like I said, you know, it's dope. So in terms of the work that goes into it, but I'm gonna let you talk on it. So tell us.
So Black Astronaut is my second photography book. My first one was A Quest Supreme. That was when I was traveling, and that was self-published. And that was a raw very raw experience because I was learning to become a photographer as I was creating that book. Like literally, you can kind of, and that's kind of the way I wrote it too. Like it's that book is my heart. That's my Reasonable Doubt. If you know Jay-Z, that's my Reasonable Doubt. And so when I knew I wanted to do something else, I didn't know what it would be though. Because the first one was a success. And I was like, what's going to be the next topic? And one thing that always like, not bother me, but I always like when I started learning more about the OGs in photography, like the ones that did it before us and made the amazing imagery that is just stapled in our minds. We might not know who the photographer is, but these photos are part of American history, civil rights movement, women's movement. I was like, damn, like, am I going to get my opportunity to take pictures like that? Like, I'm happy that we made it through. Don't get me twisted. But that level of what was going on outside, that doesn't happen in America anymore. Not like that. Not that level. You know what I mean? So people go to protests and just sit there with a sign like this, and that's the protest. Back then, it was dogs. This is real. We in the street with it. So I always was kind of like, especially Million Man March. Oh, that's my dream. If I could have photographed a Million Man March, man. So that's been my dream that I always hoping I would get that opportunity. So when it started with Ahmaud Arbery, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was George Floyd. And when Ahmaud Arbery got murdered, I remember thinking to myself, I didn't know if people were going to be protesting, and I was in Oakland, California at the time. I didn't know if they were going to come. I thought they might just be protesting where it happened. Yeah. I didn't know that people would come outside, and I didn't go outside, and I was afraid of COVID and all other stuff. So I just was like, but then I saw all the news. I'm like, oh, they were outside. But I thought that was it. So when George Floyd happened, and obviously all of us were hurt, that was just ridiculous. And at that point, I said, I was afraid of COVID, and we didn't have a lot of information about the safety parameters. And and I was a bigger guy, and I was just like, but I feel like this is worth risking my life for. Like I already said to myself, I want to have an opportunity to record some parts of American history that I think needs to be recorded. And then it being a Black man and seeing that on television just woke something out of me that was like, there's no way I'm staying in. There's no way I'm staying in the house. There's no way. And I went out there, and I didn't know it was going to become a book, but I did know that I wanted my voice to be heard, because I felt like there were a lot of photographers taking photos that felt sensational, like they didn't understand the real cry. They just wanted the burning car and the rage and the fire, but no one was getting the heart of what was going on. And once I went outside, I quickly realized that what you see on CNN isn't what's really happening outside. Yeah. But you have to have the right people in place to show what's really happening. And that's when I realized that's my calling, that's my purpose, that's my reason for being there. And so that, after 3 years of going, and it kind of like snowballed into other things, like, again, the women's rights thing that was going down, the anti-vax movement, the Trump, the political thing. Like, there were so many things going on that seemed to be like ignited from George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and COVID. And I just was going everywhere. Once that reason hit me that I had to put, like, I felt like I owed it to that man. Yeah. Like and everybody before him, like I just owed it. I felt like this need to like do something instead of just sitting in the house, like talking about it and complaining. I'm like, I'm a photographer. Like this is a gift, like use it. So that's kind of where that went. And yeah, it blossomed into a book. And I'm just so thankful because that experience, I've never put so much heart and soul into anything in my life. Like that took, like, I literally didn't know if I was going to make it. I was in a lot of very dangerous situations, all hours of the night by myself, going to different cities and different cities and states. And I was everywhere. And, yeah.
And I think it's interesting where, and thank you for giving us, we're going to have a few more questions in that vein to go a little bit deeper, but yeah, this podcast started in 2019 and, as a response to Trump talking real spicy about Baltimore. And my thing is like, don't be talking reckless, watch your mouth, and the thing that got me, you've lived here. Baltimore is a Black city. It is about 70% Black or so. So when someone is taking those weird shots, I'm like, you ain't talking about the streets. You're not talking about the buildings. You're not talking about the light posts, the trees, none of that. You're talking about people. And
Right.
that's the thing that's in it. And I thought like, all right, I'm not a political guy. I have my beliefs and things of that nature. But what I think there's more value in is trying to disprove things like that and documenting it. And I think, through that lens of arts and culture, I think that's a nice cross section, of people doing real things, who's really doing the stuff, since this place is, bombed out and, all of the stuff that is depicted as. Actually, I disagree with that. Let me show you. Let me show you through these conversations. That's really what it's been. And that's what I kind of look for. And that's what I strive for. And I'll say, I was doing another podcast around the time with, I did another podcast for about 10 years. And, with sort of the, BLM growing and even going further back, here, we have Freddie Gray. We had that, had that sort of response and, the things that were attached to it and the documentation around how corrupt our police force was and gun violence, these different things. And my point is, when you become aware of it, you can't unsee it. And do you feel like to do something? When I talk about the Trump thing, talking about Baltimore, I'm like, I was compelled. It wasn't like, oh, screw him. It was just like, nah, I need to disprove this and continue to disprove it, which is what I felt when you were describing sort of your journey around, like, something came out of you, a feeling came out of you. And, when it comes to that video, the George Floyd video, I avoided it for a bit because I was just like, it's going to make me so mad. And I'm more of I get mad, I don't get sad, and I just remember this is the only time this has actually probably happened to me. I had to take a mental health day from the day job. That's not the thing that I do. I was like, this isn't right. This doesn't work. And, as a large Black man in this world, I am 6'4", I'm a large Black man. And, I see it now, even in these rooms where you see people double clutch, just your presence. And I'm like, now we need to own this. And the last thing I'll say on it is, this podcast really took off in 2020. People were at home. People felt like their voices weren't being heard and they weren't getting sort of, so, people were saying yes without too much work. So, I think so that growth and all was happening around that time. So going back to Black Astronaut. So, we have those. Let's talk about the themes a little bit. Like I see that the book is broken down into 6 segments, right? And it's covering, you're covering like different cities. I think it's 13 cities, 9 states over the course of, 120 weeks. Thank you for being around, because talk about the breakdown of the book and ultimately, what you wanted to achieve in the sort of breakdown and over that duration of compiling the images for this book.
Right. And I think it goes really hand in hand with what you just said, because I wrote down, as you were saying, we're fighting the same fight. And that's a beautiful thing, and it's like having, I just believe like that's what love with like just spirit can do. Like it moves people to do powerful things. And, hearing you share your story as that relates to what you're doing now, that further gives a proof that, this is real. Like you can create something that really is a representation of who you truly are. And that conviction and testimony is just like the lifeblood that fuels it. And that's a beautiful, powerful thing. And going into like what you're saying into the being 6'4". So I'm 6'4" also. So I know there's a lot of times where I go places and you get the look and it's certain things that come with it. And it's like, I just have to get to a point of knowing, like owning it. Like, this is what I am, unapologetic. Like this, I deserve to be here. I'm good at what I do. I'm going to do it better than you. Like, it's just whatever you got to do to get your mindset, going. So that goes into the concept of Black Astronaut. Yeah. The deeper meaning of the context is, of course, it's a book about what was going on outside of my experience, but I chose to call it Black Astronaut because I felt like I was going into a world that did make no sense to me. It felt like, if you think about an astronaut as itself, right? Like itself, you're going to space The
Mhm.
suit protects you from everything around you. Everything around you is not a part of what your body can handle. It will literally kill you if you did not have that suit. But having that suit gives you access. It gives you an opportunity to see things, a different world, to report back and to bring back. So that's kind of how I felt when everything happened and I had a decision to leave my apartment in Oakland or stay in the house and be mad about it. I felt like I was going into the unknown. Like I felt like I was physically in a new world. And in my mind, I had to create that suit idea because that's what it felt like I needed. I was in so many uncomfortable situations, and I realized this is deeper than just me and making a book that I love, that I hope people buy and experience. But this is also about everyday people walking in their own life, having to be astronauts to their own degree, being in places where people don't understand you, places you don't understand, places where they're trying to put pressure on you to be a certain way and you don't fit in. You're an astronaut, you know what I mean? And I just want to use that concept because I think it's so much bigger than me. And it's like how we're fighting the same fight. I think there's so many people also feeling this sense of, yo, I got something in me. Like I want to create something. Something's bothering me or something I know should be done differently. And I know, and it doesn't go away. I can't sleep at night. I see it everywhere. I look on TV. I see it. That's a calling. And I want Black Astronaut to be an example of me choosing my calling to kind of like inspire others to do the same with whatever their calling is, and creating the space to do that, and just like being ruthless with what you love, like really understand that anything is possible. And I sit here and I'm happy that we're creating this space together and talking about the book, but also know like man, this would never happen if you didn't have the moment you had years in 2019. Yeah. If I didn't do what I did if I didn't leave Morgan, you know what I'm saying? So it's so much that goes into the game of these moments. And I just want people to really understand that. Like, and I want people to feel that. So that's the inner workings of the purpose of the book. Now, what I'm also showing in the book is not obviously, but is my experience through different elements of everything I saw outside. Sure. It's almost like it was such a dense experience because there was so much going on. And because I was traveling and going to different parts of America, I saw different versions of the story. Like when I'm in Oakland, that's a certain kind of vibe. I love the Bay to death, right? But if I go to New York, that's a different kind of vibe, you know, and some of that has to do with my social circles in these places too. But I was like, yo, this is crazy. So as I took all these photos, like thousands and thousands of photos, and I'm looking at all of it on this big screen, like, how is this going to make sense? You know, like, how does it go? And I realized, like, do you cut it and just do a book about, you know, the outrage outside, which is more so cliche? Or do you just be honest about who you are and just show people what you saw? It's not about it being this like report on what happened. It's about what you saw and experienced. So it's more of a personal showcasing of my world. So yeah, there's 6 sections, and I don't know if you want me to like run through them real quick, or you kind of want to.
Well, if you want to tease it, you know, because
I can do a teaser. So there's a couple all the chapters are very special. And just so people can hear them, there's the mothership is the first chapter. Then it goes into the Big Bang. It goes into gravity, deep space, antimatter, and then zenith. Okay. All of them are well thought out. These concepts of space travel as it is defined, and truly really does a great job expressing what is actually going on inside. Gravity is probably my favorite chapter, and it really gets into the after the rage and the yelling, which is the Big Bang. That's like when George Floyd passed away. That's outside, we outside, right? Then I go into gravity, which it kind of goes on the other side of the pain. Because after you let the rage die down, you have to deal with the reality of what you saw. You got to come back to Earth. And the imagery in that chapter is all of it's great. I can't like make one better than the other, but it's an experience. So to sum it up, there's just a lot of different experiences that I experienced that I'm sharing in each chapter. And they all have they're all important parts of my experience that I believe other people have experienced too. I think it's very relatable. And I think it also gives people a great opportunity to reflect on that time, because a lot of us, we We still trying to figure it out, like, and it's like, I also think sometimes you got to go backwards to go forward, and I think being able to see all those elements of what was happening that you may have not been outside to experience, I think it can create an opportunity to reflect on where you were at during those times, what you were feeling, what you were exploring, what you didn't explore, what you may have thought was going on, but wasn't, and maybe that can be something that you use to continue to guide yourself into whatever your astronaut journey, I hope, will be, because that's my goal. I want everybody to just make something happen that they really believe in, honestly.
That's beautiful. And I think that I'm gonna be looking for my autograph on there too.
Oh yeah, man. Well, you in Baltimore, so that's easy. That's easy. That's easy. We're gonna meet up. Yeah. We're gonna meet up for sure. I'm in New York. Yeah.
We got it.
Easy.
We got it.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, yeah, like that piece of being able to document it, and I think, sometimes when media is done by someone that looks like me and you, definitely our experiences are baked into what's there. This is through, we can use the lens for sake of argument, or filter, that is a Black filter, a Black lens, a Black male lens, or whatever it might be. And I think you can tell, like, in it, it's like, look, I'm not going to show to your point about the sensationalized stuff, or what I try to avoid is these things that feel kind of like hacky of, it's Black History Month, so I'm going to talk to these 5 artists. It's like, do they hit for me? Do they matter? And it's a matter of, and it's going to sound pretentious, but it is true. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of, you want to be timely. You want to do things that matter, but also there's curation that goes into it. And, I would imagine you saying you're taking, thousands of photos, you're going through like, all right, what hits in this way? What is the criteria there? And, especially for Black Astronaut, as you were touching on, like, all of them are your babies. All six sections are your babies.
Yeah, it's deep. Yeah, it's a lot.
You want to make sure maybe this fits in this way for this particular mission. And so that's where that comes in at. And, being able to go through, and there's sometimes when I'm doing these, I'm coming up on 700 episodes of this podcast in 4 years. And
a
lot of recording.
Amazing. Yeah.
And, there's not too many that I get rid of, but also I'm not looking for this super sanitized. I'm looking for that DIY, that sort of punk rock approach. I want something that feels real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have 2 more real questions that I want to like kind of close out on, and then get into these rapid fire. You're not getting away from the rapid fire questions.
I'm down, man. I'm down. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. Likewise. And this one is around sort of the representational angle, which I was touching on there, when it comes to like how Black folks are represented in media. We see some striking photos in history, right, that really captures us, and you'll see like Black faces in there. You're like, wow, that's the picture they chose. How many did you take there? That's the one, the one that looks the most extreme, the most drastic, the most evocative, and maybe that's what they're going for there. But in other instances, there are ways that Black folk are depicted that are doing that feel sensationalized, that feel reductive. Tell me about sort of that approach, or those like sort of limited portrayals of how Black people have been seen in some of the photos that you've seen and you've been around, and how maybe your work aims to do something that feels more humanizing, that feels less sensational, less like whack.
So I have a pretty interesting take on, because I agree with everything you're saying, 100%, right? But there's another part of this conversation that I've been experiencing the last couple of years, and it goes into a bit of my idea about this whole Black astronaut thing, and it's being that unapologetic being that you truly are. And I think what sometimes happens is, yes, there's forces outside of us that depict us a certain way, but there's also people that choose to play the part. Now, my question, or my hope is, or what I'm trying to say anyway, is that I feel like there's a responsibility on us to continue to not just create beautiful things, but also choose to create things that are really a part of you. Because like there's this thing, like I remember, and we were around the same age, or so, like I think you can understand this, but I remember individuality. I felt like in my 20s, that was like a big deal. Like I felt like that was something that was talked about. I felt like in conversation, you heard more about individuality. I think the world has shifted to be more about being part of groups. Now it's about fitting into groups, and that's cool too. But my thing is like, what if you're not fitting into the group? What if there's no group that fits you? What if that's just not the way the human experience was meant to be, always being defined by your group? Like we are individuals at the same time. Two things can be right at the same time also and can coexist. And I'm finding in a lot of art that, especially when I'm like following like photographers or other artists that are Black, I'm starting to see very similar imagery. And I'm like, why are we like, ain't nobody put a gun to your head and say, hey, you need to make this. Like, it's like, why are we choosing to continue to say the same stories? Like, is this because this is what you feel safe doing? Is this because this is what, and I'm not saying those stories don't matter at all. I'm just saying, if there's so many of us, how come we're not getting more individuality? How come we're not finding new things that really go like, wow, that's a different take. Wow, that's a new thing. This is quote, Prince is my guy, so I have to always shout out Prince. All right. But Prince has this quote. He said, art is about building a new foundation, not just putting something on top of what already was there. And I feel like that's when you ask me that question, because I agree 100%. There's that bull crap that's going on, and I hate it, and it's whack, and it's boring as fuck. But it's also like the world has changed so much where the individual now, or the person that is ready to do the work and learn what they need to learn and get the equipment, and you can do whatever you want. I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school for this. You know what I'm saying? So like, and look, and I've had great successes in the field of media with no training, so it's like, why do we have to kind of, and I have this quote that's in the book. You may have seen the image where it's the girl with her hair back and it goes, don't be a slave to the algorithm. And like, why do we choose to follow what someone else thinks is supposed to be cool? Like, why do we, I just don't understand, especially in the space of artistry and creativity. And I just think that more of us need to just be more bold about who we truly are. We don't have to try to be different. Just be honest about who you are. Do like the searching of within and like pick things that make sense to you. Like it doesn't need to be like, oh, no one's going to like it. Oh, the algorithm is going to like it. If they don't like it, sometimes that lets me know I'm onto something. Because yeah, if you want to go ahead, if you want.
No, that's the thing where, in doing this, like I said, I've been in the podcast space for 15 years nearly. Some of the things I would hear early on, oh, you must live in your mind, amazing, you calling it, and now it's just like people are making millions and millions of dollars doing this.
Listen,
and I've been doing it way before a lot of these folks. And you can read in it. You can read sort of these algorithms. You can read because, my job in real life is I'm a data analyst. So I sit there and I look through it and I'm like, nah, I don't believe you. You need more people. These lines ain't quite lining up. And
right.
And then you see folks because, I get, asked like, how would you do this? What is this? How do you go about building out a podcast? Things of that nature. And I teach podcasting as well, like sort of how to launch one, how to, do something, the theory around it and some of the technical. And, I'm just like, yo, don't get into it for that reason. Don't get into it for the like and the downloads and, these different things. I approach what I do journalistically and as an artist. I don't do it as, well, and I'm an influencer. I need to make sure I get this many likes.
I do this like that, like this. Yeah.
And then you realize that you're really hammering on that point because you're right. I see different artists that I know that they kind of didn't get the response, whether it be social media, that they were hoping for a particular piece or a particular arc of work. And then it's like, I'm going to abandon that. And I'm going to do what somebody else is doing because that's what's selling. And I understand this idea that artists aren't paid enough. Like they're paid, and you right. So you know this. They're paid better and treated with a little bit more reverence in Europe than they are here.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
US. So there is that inclination to do that. But let's just be real about it. If Black folk are making the wave, then why are we following the algorithm that's saying, oh, well, the wave is this?
That's
we're
what
making
I'm
that
saying. Listen, man. It's programming, and again, that's why when I I speak, I try to get people to just reflect, like just think about you. And it's crazy how something so simple can become so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think sometimes we overthink things and think it needs to be this big, glorious, big idea. And it's like it can be something that you're doing and you're not even paying attention to.
Right.
Like it can be something like I just like when I was growing up around my friends, I would always take pictures. I would always be the one that would have the photo album, and I'm not thinking nothing about it.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I have a book that's about to be released worldwide, and it's like if I and that's just my example. And I think we all have something that we have within us that's very natural. It's very simple, but it can if you just trust it and not give it away because you think people are going to judge you for it or it's not good enough or some computer doesn't think that you're good enough to be shared to all your followers. Like and I'll share this. This is one of the best advice I ever got, and it changed my career. This photographer, I can't remember his name. He's amazing though. He was like, the photography industry goes like this. There's Instagram influencer photography, and then there's industry, and they don't mix. He said, if you want to be 1,000 likes and maybe get some sponsorships and all that, cool. But just know the gallery community, the public, getting a publishing deal, you might self-publish, but getting a deal, all that stuff, that's not coming. So you need to know which one you're going to choose. And once I stopped caring about Instagram and started trying to meet people in real life, like going to galleries, going to publications and just like reaching out, like going places in person, talking to people, my career completely changed. And I still use it, but it's like, I don't use it from a career. Like I'm trying to figure something out. Like I understand that that's just not my angle. So I think there's a lot of people also that feel like if you can't make it on Instagram or social media, then there's no space for you to grow, where there's this whole world outside. Like there's businesses, corporations, there's cities, there's movements, there's like, and there are real people there and no one's paying them any mind because everyone is looking at this all day.
Right.
And if you can just like find a way to believe in something that you want to, like, I don't know, like, I just think that's another like tool that I think some people, like back to our conversation about art and like being different and unique, like, yo, there's some amazing ideas that phone will never be able to capsulate or express. And don't beat yourself down because that said no, because the world just might say yes. You just got to figure out your plan. Like that's just the game. And Black Astronaut,
No, that's great. And that's a good spot for us to wrap on the real questions. You had the quotable there. So I thought, I was like, no, we're gonna stop right there. I don't want to like screw it up. It's like, man, it would have been great, but Rob kept talking. So let me hit you with these rapid fire questions. And you've listened to an episode or so you know how rapid fire works. You don't want to overthink. So usually it's a one-word answer or something very short. So, here's the first one. You touched on movies earlier, having a love of movies. What is your favorite movie of the last 5 years? I know that's a tough question. What's your favorite movie? So I made it in the last 5 years.
Oh man, it would have been easier if you said all time.
All time then, since you're a movie guy.
Okay, American Beauty.
Okay.
American Beauty, Kevin Spacey.
Redacted.
Yeah, I get that part, but the film,
great movie.
There's so many other people that are a part of it. But American Beauty is that's Forrest Gump is up there too, but American Beauty, yeah.
If Black Astronaut had a soundtrack or audio accompaniment, thing that folks do with like the Spotify, like, here, check out my playlist.
I got it.
What are 3 songs that you would have on it?
Oh, 3 songs. I thought it's definitely going to be Kendrick Lamar. Okay, so I got it. Prince, Sign of the Times, Kendrick Lamar, I Feel, and Kid Cudi, Day and Night. Oh yeah, I like that one. That was a good one. I like that one.
You an Aquarius, bro? An Aquarius?
No. But because Kid Cudi's an Aquarius, but
he is.
Yeah, I'm a Pisces. I like Aquarius a lot, though.
I'm an Aquarius. We're it's close. It's close.
Okay, yeah. We close. We're right.
little Jan 20 situation. I'm at the very beginning. So in your travels, you're well traveled. The passport is heavy.
Yes, yeah.
mention, and maybe this is during your travel for Black Astronaut. I'm very interested in sort of the eating habits of folks.
Oof.
What is a memorable meal or food experience you had while, deep in it? Like we try to look for those moments with all of the stuff that was going on at that time. And that, frankly, still goes on. But we look for those like really, what is it? Those comfort food sort of moments of those really good meals. Do you have one that comes to mind?
There's a lot. Oh man. There's one meal, the best meal I ever had was in Japan. And this wasn't during Black Astronaut, but this was like kind of like like a year before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I remember Japan's my favorite country. And I just was out there and it was just beautiful. And I remember like I was by myself and I was like kind of didn't know if I wanted to get some Kobe beef, right? That's the thing, Kobe beef. And like I wanted to not get the cheap one. I wanted the real expensive one. So like I went to like a real nice restaurant and it was the most expensive meal I've ever had by myself. But it was the best meal I ever had by myself. And for some reason it felt like I was giving a gift to myself. Like it was like I really took myself out. Like, and I was just enjoying it, the wine, and like I went all the way. I said, you know what? Tonight, don't even care about it. Like, enjoy this meal, and that's been the best meal I ever had. And in Japan is the best. Like, the next project I'm doing, Japan's going to be a part of it. Like, it's beautiful.
Jealous. I'm jealous right now. I share a birthday with Questlove, right? And he has
that's my guy. Well, not personally, but I really like him a lot. Yeah.
He has that story of, remember the Euro Dreams sushi place? He went there for his birthday one year, so he flew to Japan to have, and I was like, this is why this is my guy. I need to do it. And just as another quick note, I've been like over like the last like 16 weeks I've been in this class, well 16 days rather, in this class to try to learn Japanese because I'm like, look,
oh really?
I'm pulling up.
Oh, you need to go, man. Oh, Japan is whoa. Okay, that
yeah.
is the reason why people go there and they keep coming back. Like I'm telling you, Japan, bro. I've been there 5 times. It's like I'm so happy. I love Japan so much. That's why I'm forcing myself to do a project, including Japan, because I'm like I need a reason to go more, and work would be a great way. Yeah.
So this is the last rapid fire one, and in sort of summation in this conversation, the horizon ahead, right? So how are you feeling, approaching the release of Black Astronaut, especially with sort of the emotional depth of the imagery, the sort of story and the time frame, and also the dynamic of being an artist, being a creator, and having your work be shared in that sort of broad way? Tell me about the feelings.
Yeah, because to be honest, this is the first like major. Like I've had major things happen, like big stuff or whatever, but this is way more personal in a way, because this is like my story, like the first chapter of the book is a forgiveness chapter. It's deep. I go really into who I am and I share it all. And so it's almost like I'm starting to really feel it more. Like I'm excited. I definitely am excited. And it's like it's been so close to me for this past 3 years that like I'm just ready. It needs to be out in the world. Like I want to let it go. Like it's like I want to just I want to do my part to make sure as many people get it as possible. Yeah. Which I'm actually enjoying that process too. Like I actually like the concept of getting the word out, like connecting with people, telling people, because again, I think it's beyond it being my story. I just think it's something that it actually is a good tool to have. I think it's a good moment in history in itself to have, and I think it's told in a way that objectively as objective I can be. I think it's just a really important thing for people to remember those moments. So yeah, ultimately I'm extremely excited, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people react to it, because I took a different approach. I purposely decided to go a different way with this book. I didn't want it to be just another civil rights book. I wanted it to be something that was like, wait a minute, I need to look at that again. Wait, this ain't what whoa, that was my point. Like that, but because I'm being myself though. I'm not like forcing that. But I really like when I came up with the concept Black Astronaut and I sent it out to all those publishers, I was expecting to get, nothing back. I didn't know what would happen. And to my surprise, I got a lot of great feedback. Even my no's were like good no's. Like they were like, yo, the concept, the proposal, this is really exciting. We just don't have the space we can't do it, but we could, if we could, And I got a good amount of yeses. And the thing that I was most proud of was the fact that I chose to make a concept that was different and I believed in, instead of trying to fit into the algorithm again. So I'm really excited to see, people's reaction to something that I feel is a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And thank you. That was great. And we'll close out. I want to thank you again for coming on and being, a lovely guest and, chatting it up. This has been really cool. Great way to wrap up the week for me here. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the listeners, again, the website, social media, but probably the website, and where folks can secure Black Astronaut. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again for having me. This was an amazing conversation. I'm really thankful to be here. This is beautiful, man. And I hope people really vibe out what we vibed out. This is great. It was just great moments. And you can find me at IamKamalX.com. That's my website. All things are there. You want to check me out on Instagram, is IamKamalX. Is my Instagram handle. And if you want to if you just don't want to go to my website to find my book and you just want to go to Amazon directly, you can pre-order. I'm not sure when this will come out, but you can order the book on Amazon simply by typing in Black Astronaut, Kamal X. You can just say Black Astronaut if you want. It pops up. It's a book with a big yellow X and it's me with a suit. You can't miss it, and any support goes a long way. On a serious note, I really appreciate you guys, and we're in this together for real. So it takes a village, and I'm just doing my part, And
there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Kamal X for coming on to the podcast. Black Astronaut, Black Astronaut, Black Astronaut. Go get it. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.